Hey, what's going on, guys? It's X. So, just to clarify what's going on, this is a stream highlight from a stream I did about a week ago on the YouTube channel, in which I talk about all the news that came out of the Bushiroad strategy presentation for Cardfight Vanguard. And this part is specifically about the, as the title says, the new start decks that came out. And now we have a lot more information and we've started to do reveals. Here's my thoughts on everything up to this point. And secondly, it also kind of came to the attention with the release of the Brandgate start deck that technically the start deck doesn't even work because turns out you actually get to learn set orders in the actual full product. However, it pretty much like the actual order itself is not in there, which now kind of begs the question: how does this even work in terms of teaching players what orders are? Like, it's like the more and more like the decks themselves just kind of come out, the more and more issues just kind of it's just a lot. So I'm gonna leave you with this on screen I've got this image from my friend Peter, who kind of just put it together for my thoughts on these Brancade start decks, and by extension Storkea, because there's probably going to be a possibility that if it's anything like the original 5 start decks, they're also going to have talk about orders in there too. So anyway, just want to kind of add that to the video. So yeah, again, apologies for this audio, and yeah, let's get into it. On that note, so we all had that nice, good, we had that nice, good discussion, right? We had a nice, fun thing. We talked about Power Rangers, Comrade. I kind of just like went crazy on that. All right, time to ruin the mood. Time to kill the vibe completely. We're back on Vanguard, and we went from the interesting, cool, fun changes, and now here we are about to do the unfortunate thing of ripping into Bushiroad for making a dumb decision. And this might be not the magnum opus, but it is pretty dang close, and we'll talk about it. So, like I said, this is going to be a separate video from the live stream itself, because I think this is what I'm about to say is going to be very important. We have this discussion, because otherwise, not a lot of this is just going to be, construed here, because I feel like I couldn't really put a video on it together, because part of it was just like, I feel like everyone said what they needed to say, or said what they had to say, and then I was like, what, I do want to talk, because just the way the whole week has been, I do want to actually talk about this itself. So here we are. I saved it for last because at the very least I can get my feelings in order and check, and be good. Let's kind of talk about it. So, announced in a Core magazine post that was originally for Japan, because they finally got Vanguard Core magazine, which is really dope. They announced that there were going to be 6 start decks. I think I didn't have the image. We'll get to that. So, I was really going to show the image. Let me put this up. So, yeah, let's do this. So yeah, let me show you. Yeah, we've got 6 start decks for all the nations, and they were going to release in January, and we get ours in April. So there's that. So they were known as the quick start decks in Japan. They're going to go for around 700 yen, and that is the whole point. And we will get to all the stuff concerning the English version in just a second. But when we talked about the whole thing was, when they finally showed more information, they showed that what was in this thing. There's going to be 6 type start decks, only 1 card type with abilities, the Grade 3 Vanguard and Sentinel. So what they basically said was, all of these cards in the quick start deck are going to be vanilla cards. They're going to be basic vanilla cards that have no skills except for the Sentinels, and the Grade 3 Vanguard, that's the boss unit of the deck. So that is the whole point of the deck, is to be a learn how to play whole thing. And there's going to be a special tutorial video in production that, you know, helps more people learn about the game as well, that probably be connected as well. So I'm trying to find, do I have anything? So for example, in the start deck, it will have the ride line cards. It'll have the signature card in the start deck. It will have the energy generator, and I don't know why it's kind of like this, but everything you see here, for example, this is the Dragon Empire start deck, is pure vanillas, including the actual vanilla from set 1, from the very first start deck. Then there's the Sentinel, which will have the Sentinel skill. Then we'll have 4 of each crit, draw, front, and heal, all with new arts, which they all look cool, right? They're all right here. I wish you could kind of pop them up a little bit closer, but that's what it is. So that is the whole thing. But also, what these start decks will also have is 2 like upgrade PRs. The first one will be a random trigger unit with an effect, which, you know, comes with a say you will get one of these 3 randomly inserted into your start deck. So you get either the front, the draw, or a crit as the effect triggers, right? And okay, I mean, I wish you rather just give them one of each so that they understand what each of them do. But you also get a second PR card, which is a print of the special Sentinels from the upcoming booster pack, right? So this is like the new booster pack for Divines. They get Sentinels, so you get those as well. And there's also a rare chase for that Sentinel unit to be replaced with Elementary Sanctitude. So we're already on our first controversy, and we haven't got to the vanillas yet. So the first thing is the 2 PR cards. When originally people were like, why are they making promos? You know, if you don't know, promos have been like a very complicated thing in Vanguard, so that's a whole thing. But when we got the reveal of, oh, they are, you know, just the PR cards that are actually just Sentinels, I mean, the triggers with effects, and then we found out the thing's just a upgraded version of the Sentinel that is just in the next booster, but you also get a presumed 1 in 6 chance for Elementary Sanctitude to get replaced. This was better, but it's still not great. For one, obviously the question is, why are they just PR cards? Why don't you just not put them in the deck? You know, that's a whole debate you put. Then there's also, why are you just getting one of these 3? You know, that's kind of crazy. Why not just one of each in the actual PR card and be like, hey, this is what they look like. You know, you can find more, etc., etc. I think that could be much better used, implemented, whatnot. Secondly, why can't you just put Elementary Sanctitude in the deck itself instead of just having it be like a gacha version of the thing, and just not have players have to hunt down Sanctitudes that are kind of necessary. Now, Sanctitude is very much a meta call in Standard. I think that's pretty much it. Like, if there's a lot of grade 4 decks, obviously you want Sanctitude, but Sanctitude is still like one of those decks that's like, if you have triple drive, it's very necessary. So who knows what that might be. So that's one thing, right? I think having like a preview card, like a preview upgrade, is actually fine. That's ironically, the Sentinel is the one I'm the most cool with here. Everything else is kind of like very questionable, but it's less questionable than what else. So let us go into the part of the second part, which is the promos. Not promos, excuse me, the vanillas. So what they have shown us is that in these starter decks, you know, we'll have 50 cards and then the 54 ride deck things. All the cards with stars on here, so for example, this card, the ride deck, as well as, you know, these two, these three, that one right here, are all vanilla cards, but they are also accessible in set 1 of Divines as actual cards with effects. So, for example, they showed what the actual effects are. Pretty okay effects, nothing really too crazy. I think if I were to look for them, I think you can read them yourself. There's multiple places you can read them on the wiki. You can read them on Reddit, which is where I got the images from. But I think what kind of upsets me is that the real reveal is that all of these cards with effects aren't anything crazy. In fact, if anything, it makes me even more upset that these cards aren't just in the starter decks themselves. Like, they're nothing insane. Right, this one is just, you gain 1,000 if you retire a card. You can, when it's discarded from right, they can call it as rest. You can Canvas 1, Energy Blast 3, draw a card, get plus Energy Blast 2, draw a card, get plus 5k. I forgot what this one does, but you basically retire a card and you draw a card for Soul Blast 2. Right? This was your generic base starter in standard. This should have not should have been in the right deck itself. Why was it not? Why are all these right? They're mostly commons. I think that's kind of it, right? Oh, excuse me. This one is like a rare. These two are like rares. So it's like, okay, we now know that. Which now this is a double-handed thing, double sword. This is a excuse me. What this does is a two-pronged thing. For one, it basically means that most of the deck is now full of phantom cards, which phantom cards is a term I have created for kind of like laying down what I think are cards that don't have effects, but you have to have effects. They're different from a card that's going to be in a booster set. For example, I think the Leonorn, Jejuled, and Youthbirth trial decks, those main bosses I call phantom cards. Because those aren't the real bosses. The real bosses are actually in main sets. These are bosses, quotations, in the fact of they technically work, but at the same time, they're missing a key part that just makes the cards just arguably better. For example, all the phantom trial deck bosses only have their battle effects, which is very good for showing what the deck's main gimmick is going to be when they finally release. But also when you realize that the whole point of say 2/3 of those decks, and 2/3 and really all 3 of those decks are those main phase effects. For example, Leonorn wants the canvas when you draw a card, you can call grade 1, so that it can actually turn on its abilities more, has more consistency. Same with Jeweled, and same with Youthbirth. Youthbirth literally can't function unless it gets a revolve form in hand somehow. So having those consistency effects be cut off and put into a booster, meaning they have to spend money to buy packs or buy singles, is what I mean by a phantom card. It means it is not really going to be used in the long run unless you are literally on a super duper budget. And to be fair, I understand all those decks were not budget most of the time. Right, so that's the whole point. So that's what I mean by phantom cards. So now it also reveals. So now with this, it reveals that the start decks are phantom cards, which means these cards right here aren't real cards. They aren't actual cards that do anything. But it also basically puts into the details of the set 1 that basically some of the commons and the rares of the decks that assumably don't have their fading ones in set 1. For example, Dark States and Storkea. The majority of their support will just be cards that should have been in a start deck. that quite literally are in a start deck. Like, they're nothing really crazy, as well as it doesn't really teach you how to really play these cards. It's like, watch, I'm gonna be honest here, if the anime fight that improves these start deck cards has their effects on there, there's no justification for this. They've actually exposed themselves. So this is a two-pronged attack of, you made start decks just basically vanilla for no reason, because these cards aren't really like that crazy to be like, oh, you need to go in these in the booster sets. But now you've also like revealed that the lower rarity of the booster sets is not going to be like anything crazy either. So you've done a double thing of, you kind of messed up set one's lower rarity, and you've also kind of messed up this starter deck's like actual ability to teach people of the game of Vanguard, and it also comes off as a scummy practice. $7 or $5 don't mean much when you're not really showing the actual value of Vanguard. Another point to note is that the Overtrigger is also not in the start deck. That means now they have to go buy an Overtrigger, which also now reveals that they have to now learn, they're now hidden from what an actual Overtrigger does. And I think someone made the argument that, like, if you have to hide the Overtrigger existing until they actually get in the game, the Overtrigger shouldn't exist. And I think that's pretty much the whole point. It's like, if you yourselves are trying to hide the Overtrigger from new players, that is a sign that you need to cut the Overtrigger. Like, I think it's time. I think it's time to pack it up, B. I think it's over. Like, if you're having to jump through hoops to hide the OT, it's over. So that's another thing, right? But, like, you know what? Hey, you can make the argument. You know, these cards are $7. These commons are going to be, like, nothing anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well, firstly, also the the main boss is also just kind of whatever. That's also another thing. So, you know, that's another thing. We don't know what the other boss is going to do, but we're all going to assume that probably like the first effect is going to be there, and the second effect is going to be based on their nation. So the main boss ain't looking too hot either to be like a main key. So that's another thing. And, you know, if it was just there, you know what? Hey, these aren't, you know, it's going to be like, hey, these aren't made for us. You know, even if the energy crest is necessary, all we can do is hope that there are box toppers in, box toppers in set 1. That'd be good. We love that. That'd be cool. And, you know, not to mention that you don't need the energy little tracker. You could just take the, the energy cards that are going to release in set 1. We've kind of already seen those before and whatnot. And that'd be okay. You know what? $7 for $7, or, you know, translate 700 yen, or translate that to English dollars. That's like what, $4 or $5. Not bad, right? It's a little pricier than it's equivalent to like the start decks they were on release, supposed to be on release here. That's fine. And then somehow English decided to ruin it all. So we come up to the realization that the quick start decks have been renamed into the start-up trial decks. And trial decks are different from start decks, because trial decks are meant to be like trial decks are meant to be like, start decks are meant to be like little baby products for people. Trial decks are meant to be for people who really want to get into the game. And so far, and remember, this is the info I got from, these are the 2 English slides I got. So none of the products are going to change. So they will all be 55 cards, and will all have the same thing. They will be grade 3 Sentinels with vanillas, and everything else is vanillas. You'll still have the PR cards be the Rand triggers. You have the PR cards be the Sentinels with the Chance of Sanctitude. And you'll also have the convenient packaging belt that can also be used as a deck holder. So that is a whole thing for 50 card sleeves. And they also announced that they will also add in a pack of 58 card sleeves and a set of fighters coins, and of course first guide and a play sheet. So they are basically packaging this like the Leonor Jeweled and Youthbird trial decks, but they're not the Leonor and Youthbird Jeweled trial decks. They don't have the amount of actual. They don't have skills. They don't have effects because you have to get them from set 1. They didn't say they're going to change that to be like, yeah, you're going to have those skills instead. You don't really need that. It's basically going to be reprinted in set 1, so you don't have to worry about that. Like, you added the play sheet and first guide are already in I think in the Japanese version, the certified clones, but the pack of sleeves and the convenient package for deck holding, that is English exclusive, and I would be okay with that if it weren't for this detail that 50 cards kind of revealed to everybody. And it is, yeah, I had a feeling the reason they added the start sleeves and deck box to the startup trial decks was to get the usual trial deck pricing. Just got confirmation the pricing is similar to the overdressed trial decks 1 through 3, around $15 to $18 each. And he says that he got a plan for him, and that's a whole different thing. I'm not gonna talk about that. So keep in mind, yeah, $15 to $18 for a thing that was posted in Japan as 700 yen for a mediocre boss, 50, almost 80 cards worth of vanillas, basic sentinels that you're going to replace these players are going to replace the second they dip. I mean, players are going to replace the second they can. One of 3 like effect cards, one Neo Sentinel, or a rare Elementaria Sanctitude. So it has not changed its contents from the actual thing, but because it added sleeves and a convenient deck holder, which is probably just going to be reused from the, I wouldn't say reused, but rather just going to do it there to push this from a $5-6 product to a maximum $18 product, not including with the source, dude. Let me see what else I'm missing before I actually rip into these. So, okay, no, this is not making sense. So, this somehow beat, I was thinking about this. This somehow beat my opinion on the current state of the Will-Dress TDs. Because at the very least, the Will-Dress TDs did everything better than this. Somehow. It had less phantom cards. Cards that, like, yeah, but the phantom cards they did have were the fake Leonor, which still had an effect that at least taught you what the deck's main goal was, even if it didn't have the consistency piece. But still also counted as the other Leonor. So if you were working towards getting like the Leonor in the set, you still at least had 4 copies. Still at least 4 copies you can still work on and replace slowly. That's fine. Secondly, right, and also those the ride blind and like Senator cards were also given like knowledge of the original of how to play the game, what certain things do and whatnot. You had that in there as well. Then you also had the cards that those were actually of in the actual tribe themselves in an alternate pack, right? It's like once you learn the game, all right, switch those out with these cards that are right here in the package themselves. Let's actually play the closest to a real game Vanguard we can. And then you also have a power-up pack, which then also gave you powerful, also gave you new cards that also changed up your deck and gave you a little boost up, right? It's like somehow it just worked. That's right. The Phantom cards were all accessible except for the main boss, which even if its main boss was a Phantom card, it still at least gave you leeway to then try and get into new cards. That's the whole point. That's one thing. Like, including a pack of sleeves in a convenient package, that is not, no one asked for that. That's not part of the original product. You changed the product so that you can boot up the card to $15, $18, allegedly. You know, I'm not saying 50 cards isn't, you know, right or correct on that, because 50 has gotten a lot of this, you know, confirmed and whatnot, where he's a seller, he is, you know, for the community. I would not completely, like, discredit him off of that. So that's another thing, right? So basically what you're telling me is these sleeves cost, basically, sleeves in their box cost $10 to $13 more, and upgraded this price for something that was literally meant to be a basic beginner product that you just threw away. So we're now in another two-pronged situation, which is Bushiroad in Japan has botched these start decks by saying, yeah, you know, these start decks are here. These are obviously made for little kids who read Skyrider or watch the Vines and be like, I want to play the game, and just pick up this thing, don't know what's going on, just play the vanilla thing and go. Right? These are literally for little babies. Right? These are for little children, like 8 years and under, to play the game, understand the game, and then when they want to, you know, when they learn with their older brother or whatever, or go to a locals, they can then get these new cards, and new cards which are all in common and rare, and actually just put them into your deck like the real thing, and actually play real Vanguard. Also, you hide the over triggers because you're ashamed of it. That's kind of call what it is. You don't hide the over trigger because you're ashamed of the OT not existing. Because you're not ashamed of the camp there, right? You know, that's the whole thing. Then you get to the PR gotcha you have to do for actually trying to upgrade your deck instead of just having them all just put together there and just don't have to do it. So already it's worse than the original, the trial decks originally. It's now worse than the start decks, because even though, you know, those start decks, well, they didn't have Sanctitude, they didn't have the PRs, they didn't have the effect triggers. Their argument for them not having them is that they didn't exist yet. Their whole point was to get people into the game for like cheap, low investment. That means you want to play the game, you then have to invest more. But you have a low investment. You spent 300 yen to get these decks to play your some overdress, and you know, depending on how much you like it, you then made that call, right? That's one thing. So obviously, like someone put it, like these are obviously made for like little babies in Japan. That's cool. But then English comes up and says, no, these trial decks are more for like teenagers. Despite the fact that they have the same effect, same stuff that the Japanese version has. And then also basically says like, yeah, they're also gonna price gouge you. For no reason. Like, this is the problem. It's like and it makes me so upset that I had to see Bushi Matt and Shunichi Taira come onto that live stream and then basically have to try and move behind all the details of that. And I didn't like that, because I like those people, and I definitely know that like this has to be, there's no way they fumble this. There's no way you fumble this like this, and that's the problem that I have. So I'm gonna kind of point you to the video, and this is from Lulz BG. No, straight up, I am right here. I got my image, bro. Like, I'm right here. I'm in the video somewhat. And they have links video, and I encourage you to watch it because it's also another thing. I also encourage you to watch the podcast that just dropped from Nexus at Night, and I'm gonna probably like put that in like the description about that exact moment when they kind of do talk about the Star Techs themselves. And I kind of want you to kind of look at that and kind of look at people who's in there. My final take on this is that if it was, I understand the idea because you want kids to be in the game. However, looking at this as a player from a starter perspective, none of these cards are anything that straight up says, "Oh, you can't learn the game with these. These are too complicated. You can't understand this." Like you can easily just do this, right? How else you gonna learn Energy Blast? How much you gonna learn Counter Blast? How much you gonna learn Soul Blast? Right? You don't even learn Soul Blast. Your one like main grade 3 only uses Counter Blast, at least in here, and there's no telling if it's going to use Soul Blast or whatever any other like decks or whatnot. But if you want to play Dragon Empire, you see the cool dragon, because you see the cool dragon with the Super Sword. Like, I don't know what Soul Blast does. What does Soul Blast do? So you don't get a way to actually use these effects and effectively. So it's like I don't appreciate what they did there in that regard. I can see what they were trying to do, but I just don't think it was the right idea. I think the way they handled it in the Wildress trial decks was better. Just objectively, I think it was just much better handled. I think just them hiding the over trigger is also another thing. It's like just ban it, guys. Like, if you're that scared to show show new players that the over trigger exists, be they children or teenagers or adults or whatever, because this game is primarily adults right now, and I understand you want to make a younger audience kind of grow up with Vanguard. It's being stuck here and not giving them, not trusting kids and learning the game, which you have, right? You said you're going to show a special tutorial video of what's going to happen. Just show them the tutorial video of the actual product. Just do that. You don't have to hide the effects in a main booster set. That not only that also is like, it also kind of brings up in my head, just think of it now. It also makes you like, it also makes it look like you just couldn't come up with anything for set 1. Like, you had nothing in set 1 to really do anything with. So that's another thing. And also, shame on the English side, or whatever side is making this decision, because how are you going to then add in 2 things that no one wanted to then try to, according to a notable vendor community, and other vendors too, I don't know how many says that, yeah, we're going to, that says these things are going to cost 3 times as much as they should potentially cost, 3 to 4 times as much. Like, just because you want to put in a pack of sleeves that are probably going to be just of these bosses, which, let's be honest here, they look alright, but they're not going to be like someone's main strategy, and put them in a plastic deck box that people are going to throw away the moment they find a deck box that's going to be cooler. Like, it's frustrating. That's really the long and short of it. It's like, I don't know what else to say here, bro. Because you've managed to just fumble it all. Right? Like, the goodwill, I think the problem with Vanguard these past year and a half or 2 years has not been the actual gameplay. I think the gameplay has been okay, right? I think you have some criticisms of it, and that's fine. But I think the gameplay has gotten, changed over time. Like, I finally got to really play a lot of Vanguard since Ringfest, BCS and whatnot. And I really do like how standard is somewhat. I feel like there's a couple things here and there that could be really worked, and I think Divine's adding more cards as the main deck combined with the energy system might change a lot of that. So That's one thing for defensively, because now you have more room for defensive stuff. But also, I think the real problem, and this is the real point I'm trying to make here, is that the real issue is that I think the goodwill and logistics of the game, outside of gameplay, are what are hurting it. Sets are very, very bloated. I didn't talk about this in the previous one, but they showed up the ratio of set 1. There's going to be 18 triple rares in that set now. And there's been no sign like Magic or Shadowverse Evolve where they've changed it so that you get more like high rarities in a box now. They haven't shown that. And I think that's a questionable decision, but we have to see as we get. But that is like what, 2 months later. I think we have to wait and see on that. But if it doesn't change, or they refuse to change it, that's not a good thing. So that's one thing. Then the second thing is just straight up, sets sets anything, and then you pull this, both versions of the game botch up, right? Like I've already made a video about Vanguard Korea, but it's like if Vanguard Korea can literally like release product that's just directly just much more wanted to open than a English product or a Japanese product. Like you can look at all their tweets, and when they're showing off product, they're like, yo, you here to see English players, Japanese players both be like envious. It's like, man, I wish we could do this in English, or man, I wish Japan could do this. That shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't be envious of a different variant of the game in a different country. That's just crazy to me. And then also English, I think the best way to I think Root Beer said it best in his little thing, like, fuck this deck. Like, excuse my language, but fuck it. This is actually ass. Like, every decision made with this start deck is terrible. It is disrespectful to new players. I think disrespectful to veteran players. I think it's disrespectful for consumers as a whole. I think it's disrespectful for new players, because it basically says like, yeah, we think new players are just babies. We think new players can't figure out what a Counter Blast is. What a new player can't learn what a Soul Blast is. We don't know what a new player can learn how to ride a card. Right? We don't trust our player base to play the game, old or new. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't think any new I'll be honest here, I don't think any new player should ever, I don't think a new player should ever, buy this. I say buy one just for the energy stuff, but I'm gonna be honest here, I think we'd be better off just probably getting some from secondary market, or wait for someone who actually, makes like these, those special things, like say the triple rares, or the other artists who are going to do content like this, which are going to make like their own things, and just wait for them to actually make something. As for new players, I say go ahead. I say I think the problem is like new players. I say get one. If you really want to try Vanguard, get one, because it's going to be the best basic thing you'll have for a while. But also, I would say also just wait for, say, a friend, or go to a card shop, and they would probably just have a fake version of these, and just put them in, and they just rather just teach you there. So I would say just go to the card shop yourself and just go there if you have a card shop, because I know another issue is outside of Japan there's there aren't as many card shops as there used to be that support Vanguard or Bushido products as a whole, which also sucks. The long short is just do better, guys. Like, I don't want to go into 20. Like, this is probably gonna be the last negative video of 2024. Thank God. Oh wait, suck at the road just shoot. This is gonna be probably the next to last negative video 2023, and I don't want to go into 2024 watching both sides of the game mess up in ways that just shouldn't be possible. You've had 13 years of what works, what doesn't. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel and stop trying to stop trying to price gouge all these prospective players with this scam. This is a scam. This English version is a scam. I'm sorry, I have to say it. The Japanese version at least makes more sense than you having to shove in 58 sleeves of something we don't even know. We haven't even seen what the sleeves look like. And we got 4 months to do it. And if they're just like regular Cardfight Vanguard, I think this is a scam, bro. I'm sorry. Like, this is the problem I have to say. Like, it's a scam, and I don't want to say that. The loan service just do better, guys. That's it. I'm out. Peace.